Welcome to Mexico City, Mr. Ben Venom.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Pantheon.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful place, right?
It is pretty amazing, yeah.
Has a lot of history here.
Yeah, the walls are phenomenal.
Yeah, I think they're going to look really good for your quilts.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I hope we don't have an earthquake while we're doing this.
I don't even want to think about that.
Anyway, I think people would like to know how you learned quilting, because it's not a common thing for a person who grew up like listening to punk rock, skateboarding, to learn this stereotypically feminine craft of quilting and making blankets. Like, how did you start that?
Yeah, so I went to grad school at the San Francisco Art Institute. I got my master's back in like 2007. And around that time, the Quilts at G's Ben show came through the DeYoung Museum. And I went to that show and I was really blown away by that work. While in grad school, I was doing a lot of sewing. And so when I saw the G's Ben quilt show, I thought I could kind of like up my game a little bit and start making a quilt. So after I graduated from grad school, I decided to make my first quilt, which is back in 2008. I had a show coming up, a group show in Berlin, Germany, that Kevin Earl Taylor had organized. And I was like, all right, this is a good opportunity for me to kind of like do something new. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'd already been doing some sewing, so I bought a book called Quilting Basics 101, had a lot of photos in the book, and I taught myself how to quilt. And the first quilt I made was primarily from t-shirts I had saved since my teenage years, so they were very smelly, they were very torn up.
See.
And I cut those up and turned them into a quilt, and I just kind of went from there. So the thing to keep in mind is that I had no idea what I was doing. It was totally just trial by fire, literally.
So it's interesting, you mentioned the G's Ben. That's like a predominantly African-American female group of women who made these quilts.
Right.
So I was just a little reference, so people, if they are going to Google it later or whatever.
Right, and also, so I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and they're from a very rural part of Alabama. So it's not that far from where I grew up, the Deep South.
Yeah.
My family and I still associate as Southerners. So.
Yeah, it's a Southern tradition. I mean, I think as from the U.S., we grow up with quilts. You know, I had a quilt that my grandmother made for me out of old shirts and clothes and dresses, and it's a common thing you give to your kids. So it's interesting to see you transform it in less as a traditional craft and more in elevating it to a contemporary art form, plus the fact that you're not female. So it's a very gender-based craft in a way.
No, totally, it absolutely is. But then you think about when you have like a suit made, like a tailor, that's predominantly a man that does that. So there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, it's good. There's that crossover. Out of curiosity, like I remember I've shown you many times now.
Yeah.
I've shown you in Paris. I've shown you in Tokyo.
All over
the world. We've been everywhere. We've eaten, donkey dicks, snake eyes, elephant balls. That was my favorite meal.
Yeah, I think I passed on that one. But
Really? But the hot sauce.
No.
Anyway, I was thinking about the fact that one time we were doing press somewhere, and they referred to you as a heavy metal quilter.
Right.
And you were like, I don't really, It's like, and I've heard people use this phrase,
right. And
it's like, it's really not accurate.
I couldn't agree more. But I think what I've come to realize is that, within, not just within the art world, but just in life in general, people want to kind of peg you as something so that they can kind of like, that's an easy way to remember you. Ben Venom is the heavy metal quilter.
The label.
Matt Wagner is Hellion Gallery. AJ Fossick is the sculptor. Kevin Taylor is the painter. Shapiro does the performances.
Crazy
right?
Witchcraft,
yeah. But when I first started out, yes, I did make a quilt that was primarily from heavy metal band t-shirts, but the work was always a lot more than that.
See.
And for example, some of the primary themes and concepts that run throughout my work is this idea of recycling, reuse, upcycle. So I take a lot of the material that I use is donated from people like you, from people like here in Mexico City. These people like that, friends, family, whoever, give me a shirt, a pair of jeans that they used to wear that means something to them, and then I cut it up and turn it into a functional piece of artwork.
Yeah, it's like a
And
memory
so,
book.
exactly. So one way to look at my art is it's a collection of everyone's memories sewn together in the form of a functional piece of artwork. So again, this idea of reuse, donation, upcycle, but also functionality.
It's interesting because that's always been the tradition of quilting is upcycling and recycling.
Correct.
But now it's more of a revolutionary idea to like sort of intellectuals and like educated people. And so I think it's interesting that you have to like be more revolutionary by using different objects in society on yours, plus the fact you're a man. These are all these kind of strange things. Out of curiosity, you recently just had a baby.
Yes, my wife and I have an eight-month-old daughter, Beatrice Rose.
So I work with so many artists, and like art life is hard. I mean, people don't understand. It's
Wait
like
till you have a kid.
Yeah, well, that's never going to happen. But my wife won't hear this. But so anyway, it's like it's a hard life, right? You have to like it's a hustle. It's constantly a hustle trying to make money. So suddenly, instead of hustling for yourself or for your girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever you have, you're hustling now for 3. And I'm just curious, like, when you had the baby, are you just so preoccupied with like taking care of the child? Are you suddenly now thinking about the future of like, okay, I got this extra person. How do I navigate the art world as a family now?
You know, that's a good question. Like, my wife and I haven't really put much thought into it because it just kind of, we knew we were going to have a baby, obviously. It was something that we were trying to do.
See.
We tried for a little while, and then it happened a little bit quicker than we had anticipated, which is good. But we never really, after we found out we were pregnant, we never really put much thought into it as like, how are we going to navigate this within our own artistic practice? Because my wife is an artist also. Yeah. She's a photographer. She shows all around. We've always kind of approached things as we'll just figure it out. And we just enjoy working hard, and we stay up late working on our different projects, and it's just, the only thing that's changed is we're a little bit more, our time is a little bit more tighter and less within the art making practice.
I think it's weird too, because right now this will lead into like a bigger subject, I think, because right now people having children in the United States they have to be worried because we have this dickhead who, is like pretty much fucking up the world. Yeah. And it doesn't worry you, that kind of stuff, like having a guy like that around?
Well, I mean, it does. I didn't vote for him by any means. But there's so many other things you have to think about that in some level I could really give a crap less about what he's doing on some levels. Because I'm living my life on my day-to-day, trying to make sure my daughter is fed properly, diapers, et cetera, et cetera. But, I do think about the bigger picture.
Have you thought about, so the quilts have some sort of, the T-shirts, like, that'll have like, like a punk band or a metal band or maybe any kind of T-shirt. I mean, we did, I had you do a label for the brewery that I do art direction for. Yeah. And you used some materials that they sent you.
Yeah, their shirts.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, have you ever thought of, political art is like a fine line. Have you ever thought of like incorporating any sort of like, or do you incorporate any sort of political or subversive or secret message about politics? And
sometimes, like you can look at it in one way. Like, my wife and I live in San Francisco. We live in the Haight-Ashbury, which is District 5, which is one of the more liberal districts within the city of San Francisco. Right. And one great thing about San Francisco is we banned plastic bags a few years ago. One of the first cities in the United States to ban plastic bags outright. Right. We have a pretty aggressive recycling campaign. We compost, et cetera, as I know Portland does the same. Yep. So in one way, that's pretty political too. That's a political statement in and of itself, I feel. But furthermore, more specifically to your question, recently I was asked to be part of this kind of political show event down in Los Angeles that had speakers, had artwork, bands performed, and it was all about having these people come out about different causes, like this cause, that cause. And so I made a quilt that literally said, Nazi punks, fuck off.
That quilt was great.
Which was a nod to the Dead Kennedys song, and then obviously what recently happened in our country in Charlottesville, which is absolutely deplorable. So the quilt was made up of camouflage and a Confederate flag. So my idea was, here's a taste of your own medicine, you fucking Nazi punks.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I love that quilt. What was the quilt for?
it was for this like event.
So was it sold or was it just?
Yeah, it sold. No, yeah, it sold. It was 100% donation.
Yeah.
So all the artwork was 100% donation. That quilt sold, and the money went towards these different causes.
It's funny how nowadays with the internet, like I actually reposted that picture on like my Hellion Gallery Instagram.
Yeah, thanks.
And
Thanks.
I got like messages from people though, like hate messages.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
You know, it's like crazy. Ever since I love Mexico City. Obviously, I love Mexico City. I'm only pretty much doing shows here now and some shows in Paris, but mostly in Mexico City. And I switched my curation to focusing heavy on Mexico. As soon as I did that on Facebook, I started getting like completely fucked up messages. This one guy, he's an ex-military guy. I posted this picture I only hired Mexicans for this big job that I did, right? And basically I'm giving money to Mexican workers.
Yeah.
And he said he was going to drive to my house and kill me. Okay. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I'm just like working with artists. I'm like, relax, you know?
Which is one of the big reasons why I was excited that you asked me to be in this show, and I was 100% on board, because I was like, I want to come down here and see for myself. You know, this is my first time to Mexico City, and I think all the stuff you see on the news is
it's all bullshit.
It's not necessarily
it's like
the
100%
reality.
bullshit.
And I also did a piece. I did a jacket. One of my I teach at the San Francisco Art Institute.
Oh yeah.
And one of the other teachers there, Tarvat, she's Persian. She's Iranian, and like I did a jacket that says like "Peace with Iran." Got a lot of death messages from that.
People get so upset about these like things that.
And it's like, look, this was just my point with this jacket, and it was a collaboration with her, and she does a lot of political stuff with her, her culture, etc.
Right.
She's American, but has that kind of duality there. But it's like all I was saying was I just want peace between our two countries.
Yeah, I don't think people understand.
And I feel the same with like Mexico and the United States too.
Oh, without a doubt.
I don't think there's any difference there.
It's my whole object was basically I want to bring people like you down here so that everyone here can get to experience like contemporary, up and coming artists who might not normally show here because maybe they believe the hype or maybe someone told them, and then take Mexican artists and export them to like maybe Tokyo or like, Paris or even Portland, and it's like an exchange. So I'm really happy to have you here because like, this is my biggest show I've ever curated in this city. So I really appreciate it. And it takes a lot of nerve for a place like Pantheon and Perro Negro and even Kraken to get on board because they don't know me, they don't know you, and we're like coming here and they're gonna like help us out. And so I'm pretty stoked to have you here. And it's
but you bring up a good point because all these different people that are like behind the scenes that are a part of it with all these different shows and that you've done that we've all been a part of. It's like it's all about taking a little bit of risk.
Every show we've done has been a risk. I love this. It's like, even if it is eating raw horse meat in Tokyo.
That I definitely didn't do. But.
We had okonomiyaki. Come on. I mean, Japanese. I mean, it's like here.
You guys partook.
I'm an adventurous eater, even if it means like spending hours on the toilet. It's like it's worth it sometimes. I think here we're gonna eat some good food, eat some really good Mexican food. I'm sure later tonight we'll be eating pizza probably later. Hopefully it's at 5 a.m, drunk as fuck. But we'll see how it goes. So there's going to be press here later on, and I'm curious. Like, you have to explain. You're going to have to give them a tour of the show.
Okay.
So the show is titled Over the Top.
Right.
So explain the reference to Over the Top. I know the reference.
Yeah.
And explain if there's any sort of cohesiveness to the pieces in the show, which I'm sure if they're watching this video, they'll be able to look online and see.
Yeah, so Over the Top is a nod to the Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie, which is absolutely terribly awesome. It's all about thumb, where the thumb is.
Yeah,
right?
man, you gotta snap them.
I mean, who wouldn't arm wrestle for like a huge ginormous truck?
Yes,
exactly. It's a massive like truck for him to like. He's a truck driver, man. When the hat goes on backwards, that's when you mean business.
Stallone.
So, So there was a reference to that movie, which I thought was pretty awesome. But then, you know, anytime I use like sayings or slogans within the titles of my shows, but also in the artwork that I do, I like to take these kind of slogans or sayings or phrases that are able to kind of have like a duality. So Over the Top for me is a reference to the Stallone movie, but it's also all the work that I do with my quilts and my sewing is applique, which means it's sewn on the top. So it's over the top. So it's over the top. So it's a little bit of the bit of that.
Double meaning.
I think they call that clever, maybe. So I was trying to be a little smart.
Some people do call it clever.
I was trying to be smart. But it's also, you know, it's being a little sarcastic, and I like to have a little bit of fun with that. You know, I take what I do seriously, but it's a little unserious at the same time. You have to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, I think, and that's totally part where I kind of lie. You know, I think it's, you know, I try to work hard with what I do, and I get behind it 100%, but it's obviously, there's totally a little underlying kind of like dark humor to it, and that kind of parlays into like some of the titles and things like that. Like, I totally recognize how ridiculous it is, but also keep in mind, I make quilts. That's pretty ridiculous too. You know,
everything is, I
right,
sort of.
You
just got to embrace it. You know, life is short. Be ridiculous.
It is what it is, man.
Yeah,
you know.
I'm with you.
My dad finally accepted it.
That you make quilts?
My son makes quilts.
Oh,
yeah.
I have to tell you, my father came to his first show of mine in Paris this year. He never knew what I did. My other brothers and sisters are like teachers in the business world. Yeah. And he came and he was like looking around the gallery and he was like, you know, he's got a southern Indiana accent and he's just like, this is all right.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He's like, there's free booze.
Yeah. I'll partake in that.
Yeah, exactly. Some wine.
This art stuff ain't so bad.
Yeah, if people are speaking English, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, when you're making a quilt, like, what's the soundtrack?
Well, probably about 2 years ago, my wife Megan bought me wireless headphones. So prior to that, I would just have to blast music because keep in mind, like I'm like the sewing machine is like right here.
Yeah.
My head is literally within the machine.
Yeah.
And when you're running, my machine is like, it's kind of like a mid-level. It's like not fully industrial, but it's not like a piece of shit domesticated one. So it's like, you know, I used to have like a Brother XL 2610 sewing machine, which is like about this big, which I liken to like a shitty Honda Accord.
Right.
But then I bought a Juki F600, which I liken to a souped-up bitchin' Camaro. So.
Is that a Japanese machine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but that machine is a little bit bigger and a little bit louder. So, you know, it's the noise. I have a pretty high noise factor. So I have the wireless headphones. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of Financial Times podcasts, oddly enough, and a lot of true crime podcasts lately. So a lot of like death and murder, like a lot of murder lately, a lot of murder. And then also I watch really bad action movies, much like Over the Top.
Nice.
So, which I would argue is not bad in a good way. So that's pretty much the soundtrack, and then obviously at night I'll start cranking up some of the metal so I don't fall asleep.
Yeah. How about nu metal? What's your favorite nu metal band?
Nu metal. God,
you know, like
I don't
Yob or like these kind of
nu
like
metal.
High on Fire or like
High on Fire, Mastodon or Epic Shredders, Black Cobra. Sleep, they're a little bit older, but they've started to play again.
I love Sleep.
Let's see who else. Kylesa. I'm trying to think of who I.
Have you ever heard Torch?
Yeah, they're good. I haven't seen them play, but I have heard of them.
Yeah.
I have listened to them. I have like probably 2 of their albums. See who else. Those are a couple.
Yeah.
But I'm also into like the 80s metal.
Slayer.
I mean, you know, if you don't like Slayer, fuck you. Basically, and then obviously Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Metallica.
Yeah.
You know, all the big ones. Pentagram.
Yeah.
Venom,
of course.
Yeah.
I had a Mexican artist staying at my house last year because I was art directing this music festival, and I made the mistake of leaving my laptop on my kitchen table, and he looked at my music, and he noticed there was no Black Sabbath on there. But it's because I listen to that stuff on Spotify. I don't keep it on my computer.
Oh, right.
When I came back to my computer and looked at my memory, there was 20 gigs less. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I look, he had put every fucking Black Sabbath. He got his hard drive.
Yeah, and put it on there.
And put it all on there. And he just was like, now you're set.
See, that's a real fan there.
Oh,
that's
dude.
Pretty epic.
Yeah. Killer artist here in Mexico City named Mazat. Really awesome.
So this upcoming June, I'll be in Birmingham, England, which they call the home of metal for Black Sabbath 50th anniversary, and I have a show that's
right.
coincides with that.
You at
It's at the Midlands Arts Center.
right, but you did the in L.A. at Subliminal.
Yeah, that was kind of a precursor to this.
Yeah.
It's the same people. Lisa Meyer runs Home of
So
Metal.
you're making art based upon Black Sabbath? Like,
No, just all of metal.
Just metal.
Just metal. Heavy metal primarily. Punk rock, heavy
And
metal.
they're going to do the same show in the UK?
It's sort of the same show. It's me, solo show at the Midlands Arts Center. Then I have another artist at another museum. Then Black Sabbath, it'll be like an archaeological show of Black Sabbath. So all of the photos, guitars, jackets, they're literally going to the archive. Like Sharon Osbourne has released a lot of like old ticket stubs, like dating back.
Is Ozzy going to be there?
I don't know who's going to be there. I'm pretty sure Tony Iommi will be there.
Nice.
Bill Ward and Geezer Butler were at LA.
Right.
I got to meet Bill Ward, very nice,
cool.
very nice guy.
Awesome.
Geezer was there. He had his granddaughter with him.
Nice.
He took off a little early before I got to say hi to him. But I think some of them will be over there in Birmingham because they're from Aston, Birmingham.
Yeah.
So.
Have you been asked to do any? I'm sure you have. Like asked to do any like T-shirts or album covers for metal bands or anything like that?
I have for like some friends of mine in San Francisco. Walk-In, I did like an album cover for them.
Wait, that's Kevin's band, right?
That's my friend Shane Bergman's band.
Oh, I thought Kevin was in
Kevin plays another band called Death Cheetah.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. I've done some sewing stuff for him.
I think you need to have a Mastodon shirt this year.
Well, I don't want to like get the cat out of the bag, but there might be something coming up with that in the coming times that may or may not be shown in Birmingham. Stay tuned.
Another one, Big Business.
Yeah, I've seen them play. They're great.
Oh man.
Yeah, they're good.
They're
because they also play with the Melvins.
Yeah, I saw they opened for Mastodon in Portland, and we went, and then the show ended, and me and the drummer from Mastodon, we all piled in an Uber.
Oh, Braun. Yeah.
Braun, yeah. And we went across town to catch them close out Stumpfest, and it was killer.
Yeah, I've been emailing with him. He's super nice.
Yeah,
because all those guys.
Dude,
they're from Atlanta.
And he's an art collector.
Yeah.
I mean, he owns like work by Fawcett.
And Skinner's done a bunch of stuff for them.
Skinner did the one album cover. AJ did the album cover.
Exactly.
I think.
AJ did the Hunter. Skinner did the one. I think the one or two after that.
Yeah. I'd love to see you on a Mastodon album cover. That'd be awesome.
I'm trying to do something with them. We'll see what happens. Yeah. As I said, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Great guys, great band.
Excellent band. I don't know. How are you? Should we keep going?
How do you feel?
Well, I don't know. Do we need more content? I mean, I don't know if we squeezed in everything like we were supposed to. I don't know.
Do you have any more questions, or do you want me to talk about something else in particular?
Okay, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Since you just had a kid, what was it like getting the vasectomy afterwards?
Luckily, I didn't have to go through anything. And I didn't even want to watch, to be honest. Luckily for us, my wife was only in labor for like maybe 11, 12 hours. It was literally like the drive-through service. So we got pretty lucky there. No complications. Our daughter came out fine. We were pretty more or less in and out, but it's scary. It's crazy though.
This reminded me because I was thinking of Meg with us in Tokyo when we did that show. And I remember when we did that show, people would come up to the walls, and at that show we actually hung denim vests on the wall that we had stitched.
Yeah.
And people had this hard time of like, is this art or is this fashion?
Yeah.
And finally we were like, no, go ahead, take it off, and they tried it on.
Put it on, yeah.
Yeah, and then people ended up buying the pieces. So I'm curious about that because you were showing me the jackets that you showed at the Fort Wayne Museum.
Right.
And so, like, where is the crossroads at from, like, being an artist in a gallery to, like, making a product or a fashion thing? I mean, is it the same? Is it, like, commercial work? I mean,
those are all one-offs. Those are all one-of-a-kinds.
Yeah.
So the jackets I had with you in Tokyo, so I'd buy the jacket, then I would sew stuff onto it.
Right.
I did 3 jackets at the Fort Wayne Museum. Those were completely made from scratch, from like a pattern, and those were a collaboration with these guys down in Los Angeles. They go by Truth Never Told, TNT, and they're chain stitchers. And so we've been working together somewhat recently, and we collaborated on those 3 jackets. They're at Fort Wayne Museum.
Right.
And we're going to be doing a bunch more for the show in Birmingham in June. So
You'll bring jackets over to the UK.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a couple.
Huh?
Yeah, me and the Truth Never Told guys.
Wow.
And again, these are completely from scratch. Like
So-
they do everything. Like I'll do a lot of the design. I'll do a ton of the stitching. I send it down to them down in LA. They'll do more stitching, and then they actually will piece the jacket
assemble
together.
the body
The
of the
cuffs
jacket.
and the
Right.
buttons and whatever.
So I think what I'm trying to get at is like, if someone buys a quilt, right? A quilt is a blanket. Originally, it was a utilitarian device to keep you warm, right? So if someone, let's say the Iron Fist quilt, which is the largest quilt in this show, it's interesting to think of someone buying it just as a hanging art piece, or have you had people buy your work and basically they put it on their bed or on their couch as a blanket?
Yeah, they have. They might not use it like every night or every day,
right?
But I have seen that.
And like with the jackets, we had them on the wall as art in Tokyo, but I remember the one guy who bought one of the jackets, he wore it. He was wearing it around. So I'm like, it's a weird, there's not that line with any other art.
Right,
you know, like sculpture or painting that just goes on your wall, people look at it, it has a story. This is something you could throw on your bed. I mean, you know.
But that's what's so important for me, and what ultimately led me to working with textiles is this idea of functionality again.
Right.
So it's like, even if you don't like what you see that I do aesthetically, or even conceptually, from whatever standpoint, at the end of the day, you can still wear it and still use it. It's still functional on some level.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with having a pretty picture on the wall, but for me, I wanted to do something that kind of had more to it than just hang like a pretty picture hung on the wall.
Right.
Like I want something that had a little bit more behind it. So for me, I describe my art as a collision. It's a collision of fine art, craft, and what I call the fringes of society, and that kind of refers to a lot of what I'm interested in: punk rock, heavy metal, skateboarding, the occult, paganism, etc. Taking all these kind of different ideas and colliding them together in the form of a functional piece of artwork. Now you're asking about the jackets. Yeah, like more recently, I've done a lot of commissioned jackets where someone will mail me a jacket of theirs, and then I'll sew a patch, do the collars, and do a bunch of stitching onto it, and then that's for them to wear. And same with the jackets that I collaborated with, Truth Never Told, those are meant to be worn. So those guys, the ones I did with those guys, we just started doing that. But now we're moving into it where someone will email us, I'm a size 40 suit, long sleeve, I'm long arms, et cetera, et cetera. So send us, get measured for a suit, send us those measurements, then we'll make the jacket accordingly.
Right.
Because we can do it, it's all custom. So that's what we're kind of merging into. And again, they're all one-offs so far.
Right.
Because they're all made by us.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Pantheon, thank you to Hellion, thank you to you, Matt, and thank you to you guys. Really appreciate coming down to Mexico City.